Hey, let's go over every single episode of Dragon Ball Z. This time, the Buu Saga, naming one fact or more for each one. Let's begin. Episode 200. It's been 7 years since the defeat of Cell, and this episode marks the beginning of the Buu Saga, and the first time since the start of Z where we get a miniature rebranding of sorts. A new opening called We Gotta Power replaces Chala Hechala, and a new ending, We Were Angels, replaces Zenkai Power. There's new eye catches, and the second Shunsuke Kikuchi Dragon Ball Z soundtrack specifically made for the anime begins to be used from here up to the end of the series, giving the Buu Saga a pretty different feel from the rest. It's also my favorite soundtrack. We Gotta Power has quite a focus on Gohan's time in high school, and Goku in Otherworld, which for the anime staff seemed to be the direction the manga was going. But as explained by his editors, Toriyama got bored of that pretty quickly, and changed courses. So we got an opening animation that didn't really represent what the Buu arc did, but at least it didn't spoil the entire thing like Kai. Gohan's gym teacher also seems to be based on Freddie Mercury, the lead singer from Queen. Akira Toriyama's wife was a big fan of Queen, and even wrote a manga based on the band, so it is likely that this was on purpose. For the 27th anniversary of Freddie Mercury's death, Dragon Ball Super artist Toyotaro drew the gym teacher posing like the rock star. Episode 201. One of the chapters this anime episode is adapting, 424, is completely different in the manga. The general idea is the same. Videl gets a call to help out in the city. Gohan overhears and he jumps into action as well. But in the manga, it's two criminals who are escaping and blowing up cars, rather than a set of bank robbers taking a bus full of seniors. The anime makes Gohan a little more heroic, and the conclusion of the manga adventure doesn't get adapted until a few episodes later. In fact, this is pretty much it for the Great Saiyaman adventures in the manga. Although the two criminals don't make it into the story itself, they do appear in the opening and Dragon Ball Super. Episode 202. This is one of the shortest Japanese Z titles, lacking the usual two-part phrasing. Here we see a flashback of Goku and Chi-Chi's first date, exclusive to the anime. In the manga, Goku doesn't see Chi-Chi again after their first meeting until the 23rd World Tournament, but the anime did add a filler episode during the Red Ribbon Army arc. But the events in this flashback never happened there. More importantly though, this episode has something of a dark history in America. It was originally supposed to air on September 19th, 2001, only 8 days after the 9/11 terror attacks on New York. So of course, it was pulled, and instead, episode 203 was aired. But what was wrong with the episode that they wouldn't allow it? Well, it features the Great Saiyaman saving people from burning buildings. This was one of many instances of changes made to media during this time. The episode would eventually air on November of that year. Episode 203. The leader of the criminals who kidnapped the mayor of Satan City is named Rock, and he's actually a character from a different Toriyama manga, Dub and Peter 1, where he's the minion of Lord Asatias, who kidnaps a girl. Dub and his super smart car, Peter 1, stop the duo and rescue the girl by shooting Asatias' car off the air. It's a fun little one-shot, but what's really interesting about it is that it takes place in Pepper Town, the same town future Gohan dies in the future, and they use Zenny. All of that, coupled with Rock's appearance in this episode, makes me think that it really is supposed to take place in the Dragon World. Episode 204. The end of this episode picks back up where the previously mentioned chapters which were not adapted ended, where Videl and Gohan stopped the criminals. This time, chapter 405 is where Videl finds out that Gohan is the Great Saiyaman during the same altercation. She finds out more or less immediately after he starts being a superhero, while in the anime there's quite a few adventures in between these events, and she ends up confronting him at school rather than right then and there. The Great Saiyaman stories end here in the manga, but the anime has a little bit more to show us. Episode 205. There's some reused designs in this episode, in particular, the director and his assistant being clearly based on red and black from the Red Ribbon Army arc. There's also this peculiar owl, which hasn't shown up since Dragon Ball Episode 2. In the scene where Goku talks to Gohan from Otherworld, in the anime, he's with Uranai Baba, whereas in the manga, she's not there, and instead, we can see that Goku is in heaven, with a little dog and a squid alien hanging around. Bulma also wears a rarely seen outfit in this episode, which only really appears here and the training mode of Budokai 3. Her model seems to be left over from a scrapped playable Bulma, since not only can you get a Bulma character capsule through glitches, which does nothing, but there's also audio files of the announcer saying her name.
Bulma versus Bulma!
and even a video of Bulma's voice actress performing battle lines. Episode 206. In the English dub of this episode, Goten mentions that the dinosaur he's playing with reminds him of Icarus, the only time he's mentioned in the anime since he disappeared in the previous arc. In Japanese, he just says that the dino is his friend. Speaking of Goten, the scene of Goten and Chi-Chi training and him going Super Saiyan is anime exclusive. In the manga, he only mentions her showing him some moves, and that he has no idea why he can go Super Saiyan. The anime ends up combining both of these ideas. And finally, when Chi-Chi reminisces about Goku when Videl arrives, the image of them driving after the wedding is taken from the cover of chapter 171 of the manga. Episode 207. The scene where the South Kaio comes to see Goku train is extended in the anime, adding in a new character named Papoi, whom the South Kai claims could beat Goku. This character is mentioned in that scene in the manga, but he doesn't appear. Toyotaro would later draw Papoi as having arrived a little bit too late to participate in the Otherworld tournament. Vegeta also makes Trunks the promise to take him to a theme park if he can get a punch in on him, a promise he wouldn't fulfill until episode 2 of Dragon Ball Super. In this scene, he also calls it a Super Saiyan bargain sale, a line he would use again in Dragon Ball Daima when referring to Super Saiyan 4. Toriyama has clarified that Vegeta has never been to a bargain sale, since of course Bulma is rich, and instead he just learned about it on TV. I wonder what kind of shows Vegeta watches. Episode 208. The amazing scene where Goten has a tearful first meeting with Goku is actually exclusive to the anime. In the manga, Goku points out Goten, who's hiding behind Chi-Chi, but Piccolo interrupts them and says that they have to hurry. Goten in the manga overall seems a lot more shy and scared around Goku, with a few more panels of him glancing at him. Goten doesn't really open up, cry, and hug Goku until chapter 477, when Goku leaves back to Otherworld. Videl's mom is also mentioned in the English dub of this episode. She was a singer named Miguel, with her name coming from the archangel Michael. Get it? A marriage between a devil and an angel? Videl herself has a name that's a rearrangement of devil, keeping up with her father's naming scheme. Episode 209. The Ginyu Frog makes another cameo appearance, which I had totally forgotten about. Honestly, I didn't remember him being such a recurring character. It's kind of charming. And just for fun, these are all the scores for the punching machine. The highest score out of everyone is Android 18 with 774, but of course they were all holding back. Except for Vegeta. The punching machine has appeared in a few Dragon Ball video games, with what I think is the most memorable one being Raging Blast, where you play as Videl. Episode 210. Akira Toriyama's avatar, Toribot, can be seen on the upper left of the stands as the Z-Fighters start to watch Mr. Satan's film. So nice of him to attend both the Otherworld tournament and this one. The start of the film is a parody of the Toei opening logo we can see in all the original Z films, and the end credits list the actors as those responsible behind the scenes. Director Mitsuo Hashimoto, assistant production manager Kazumi Fujioka, animation supervisor Yukio Ebizawa, and many more. The Kai Final Chapters version of the film had the guys from Team 4-Star voice the characters, though this was eventually changed and removed. C-U-N-H-F-I-L! Episode 211. Ikose and Hidasa. The two annoying brothers Goten and Trunks fight during the tournament have actually recently made a new appearance in Dragon Ball Super Chapter 104, training under Mr. Satan at his dojo. Looks like their loss didn't deter any martial arts dreams. I should also mention that the tournament arena has been completely remodeled and expanded, and the surrounding town has been rebuilt, since it was all destroyed by Piccolo Jr. Although this new arena only appears in this arc, it's actually the most commonly used in video games, simply because of how much space there is compared to the last one. Much more fitting for flight characters, although the Budokai series makes something of a combination of both versions of the arena. The Dragon Ball Z New Year's Show. Between episodes 211 and 212, a recap special called Looking Back at It All, the Dragon Ball Z Year-End Show, was aired, featuring Goku teleporting to Earth from Otherworld to spend New Year's with his family. Together, they recall the Cell Games and the Otherworld tournament, ending the special all dressed up and telling the audience to look forward to the Adult Tournament Division coming next year. Episode 212. In this episode, Goten fires his first Kamehameha, mispronouncing it as Kame Kameha, and almost blowing away half the arena. Even Trunks knows how to pronounce it correctly. But for whatever reason, the English dub missed out on the pronunciation, and Goten actually just pronounces it correctly. This has been fixed in video games and in Kai. I also want to mention that Trunks is a huge cheater, breaking every single rule set prior to the fight. He uses his left arm, he goes Super Saiyan, and even uses Ki Blast 2 times. I also own an animation cell of this episode. Episode 213. In this episode, we're introduced to Shin and Kibito, the Supreme Kai and his assistant. Even before Daima, we had quite a bit of information about his origins, but Daima did greatly expand on it. Shin's original name was Nahare, and he is the brother of Degesu and Arinsu. They're all members of the Glint race, who originate from trees in the second demon world. Although they're all technically genderless, they do present as female or male. Kibito is an older Glint who serves as Shin's attendant, and has a particular dislike for mortals. So much so that in the manga of Dragon Ball Super, Shin's first idea as who could be Goku Black was Kibito. Episode 214. In the dub, Piccolo says to Krillin that destiny is not something you can control, as he prays, but this is actually changed from Japanese, where Krillin was praying to God, and Piccolo reminds him that God is Dende. This was likely due to censorship, which is also the reason why Dende and Kami are given the title of Guardian of Earth, rather than literally what Kami means: God. Likewise in Japanese, Trunks tells Mighty Mass that there's a girl who wants to talk to him, while in the dub, he says that someone just wants to fight him. Episode 215. Piccolo and Shin enter the ring. In the tournament, Piccolo goes by the name Ma Jr., just like he did in the 23rd World Tournament, with the explanation this time being so that no one freaks out if they hear the name Piccolo. But this is a little weird, since last time he used the name Ma Jr., he still blew up an entire town, and he's not exactly trying to look any different. Either way, no one seems to remember this, except for the announcer. The legendary manga guidebook claims that Shin's power is similar to Goku's during the Cell games, while the Daisenshu mentions that he's far above Piccolo. Episode 216. Videl is the first character, and the only character, we see trigger an elimination by killing their opponent, though it's only temporary as everyone thinks she broke his neck and killed him. I also haven't gotten to point it out, but the English dub gives Killa this insane voice.
Man, I tell you that, man, I've been taught I woke you up like a jackhammer.
Episode 217. This episode is one of the most violent beatdowns in Dragon Ball, and also one of the most censored because of it. Although the anime version is pretty bad, it does censor one thing, since in the manga, Videl loses several teeth, which just doesn't happen in the anime. The anime also reinterprets the scene where Spopovich fires something at Videl, from a weak invisible attack to a literal Ki Blast cannon. Episode 218. This episode gives us our first real look at the previous World Tournament, the 24th, which happened just a few days before the androids attacked. In it, Mr. Satan was declared as the world champion, though it is a little weird that there was 7 years between the last one and this one, since before it was every 3 or 5 years. But the tournament is more popular than ever now, with the prize being changed from 500,000 zeni to 10 million. In the manga, we never see anything about the 24th World Tournament. It's only alluded to when Killa talks about Spopovich, and we see him with his long, luscious hair. Also, and I find this really strange, this was the episode with the highest rating share in Dragon Ball Z, with a total of 27.5 in Japan. I guess people really wanted to see Gohan kill Spopovich. Episode 219. In this episode, Gohan gets his energy stolen by Spopovich and Yamu, placing it all in a Kili collecting receptacle. Kili is a unit of measuring power, which, according to V-Jump, 1 Kili unit is equal to 50,000 power level. But there's no way this can be right, since Dabra says that a Kili of 200 to 300 is what's needed to destroy a planet. To put it into perspective, 300 Kili is equal to 15 million power level, but Frieza could easily destroy Planet Vegeta in his first form, with a power level of only 530,000. Episode 220. The Majins were brutal in the manga, where we can see a whole family mutilated near Babidi's ship. So of course this was heavily censored in the anime. And although Spopovich's death is still pretty gruesome, we get to see a lot more of the aftermath in the manga. Episode 221. The Z fighters enter Babidi's spaceship to challenge the Majins, and the first one up to bat is Pui Pui. His name comes from Chin Chin Pui Pui, which is a Japanese saying said as a charm to kids when they hurt themselves. Something like a mom kissing a bruise to make you feel better. Pui Pui is from planet Zune, a world we later see being invaded by Moro's forces in Dragon Ball Super. Many members of his race are also added into the anime as Babidi's minions, though a couple do appear as faraway silhouettes in the manga as well. Speaking of which, the English manga changes Pui Pui's name to Pocus to make it more relatable to magic puns in English. Hocus Pocus. He is very proud of his world having 10 times the gravity of Earth, and he was even used as an April Fool's bit in Dragon Ball Legends, where it became Dragon Ball Pui Pui, and he managed to beat down Vegito and fuse Zamasu. Episode 222. The title card for this episode shows a map of Babidi's spaceship, which is taken from chapter 450 of the manga. There, we see a detailed layout. The ship has an entrance on the top above the surface, with the bridge and the rest of the ship hidden underground. There are 4 levels total from top to bottom, with Babidi's conference room on the 5th level, containing Buu's sphere beneath it, with all the energy being collected into said room. On the left tower, we find the meditation room, Babidi's room, and Dabora's room. On the right, we can find rooms for Babidi's men, and the waiting room for the fighters. There are also 2 more entrances on the left and right. The dub, however, says that there's only 3 levels they must get through for whatever reason. Episode 223. This episode marks the first time in the entirety of Dragon Ball Z where Goku is shown to kill someone other than like a fish or something. This time, he kills Yakon. The last time we saw Goku end someone's life was against King Piccolo, and the next time he will do it will be Kid Buu. And just as a little fact, Yakon has 800 Kili and Super Saiyan Goku has 3000, so it's no wonder the battle ended the way it did. Episode 224. We find out in this episode that Kila was eliminated in the 2nd round of the last tournament, and Jewel in the final round against Mr. Satan. The previous tournament was also the introduction of the Junior Division, where Videl took home the gold, though they do get rid of the Junior Division by the time the end of Z happens. But it's reinstated in GT, I guess. There's also this guy here giving the stink eye to Ox King when he sits down. I just thought it was funny. Episode 225. In the manga, Android 18 manages to avoid and block every single one of Mighty Mask's attacks. She doesn't get touched once, and when they go Super Saiyan and they fire a blast, she ends things pretty quickly with a Kienzan. In the anime though, the kids do a lot better against her, actually getting a few hits in, and even continue to fight 18 as Super Saiyans after their cover is blown. The anime also has a continuity error, where although Goten and Trunks leave the stage without the Mighty Mask costume, by the next episode they still have it and they're taking it off over the city. Episode 226. This episode features the beginning to the match between Gohan and the Supreme Demon King Dabura. It was revealed in the Daizenshu databook that Babidi took control of Dabura on age 474, and the Buu Saga takes place on age 774, so he had him under his spell for 300 years. In the original Dragon Ball anime, we get our first mention of the Demon Realm during some filler. It's pretty unrelated to the one we know now, but Dokkan Battle tries to link them together by having Shula, Melee, and Gola appear and explain that they've been searching for their missing Demon King. Daima gives us a different view at the Demon Realm, showing that Dabura is the successor of Abura, his father. One more thing before I move on. The promise Mr. Satan makes to Android 18 about paying her for letting him win is followed up in the opening of Bio Broly, where she goes to his house to shake the money out of him. Episode 226. The topic of if Gohan was a Super Saiyan 2 during the fight against Dabura has been a heated one for a long time. Some argue that Gohan isn't Super Saiyan 2 because it's the only way for Vegeta's comment about him being weaker than he was during the Cell games would make sense. Daisenshu 7 does say that Gohan was a Super Saiyan 2 in the fight. However, Daisenshu 2 says otherwise, mentioning that Buu Saga's Super Saiyan 2 Gohan only appears in volume 37. And Toriyama doesn't really draw any lightning for Gohan in this fight, something he is fairly consistent about around this time. I don't think there's an actual definitive answer, especially when guidebooks themselves contradict each other. Episode 228. Majin Vegeta makes his appearance in this episode, becoming one of Vegeta's most iconic forms. Of course, we widely know him as Majin Vegeta, mostly because of video games and the fandom, but he's been given many names over the years. Games like Xenoverse 2 and the Dragon Ball Super card game have started to refer to him as Prince of Destruction Vegeta, which is actually what he's referred to as in the Japanese title card. Other characters who are taken over by Babidi and Heroes and the like are given similar titles, like King or Agent of Destruction. Episode 229. Some people believe that it's the push from Babidi's magic that allowed Vegeta to turn into a Super Saiyan 2, but this isn't actually the case. Both the Super Exciting Guide and the Daizenshu describe Vegeta as having trained his way into Super Saiyan 2, and not because of the Majin power-up. Additionally, because Goku threatened Shin in this episode, he got eerily close to killing the God of Destruction Beerus, since there's a secret link only known to a few between the God of Destruction and their Supreme Kai. If one of them dies, so does the other. This is why in the Goku Black arc, Zamasu chose Trunks' timeline, since Shin died during his Majin Buu conflict, and because of it, Beerus was dead too. Black would go on to kill every single Kaioshin to get to their god of destruction. Episode 230. This legendary fight is actually only around like 4 pages in the manga, and most of the chapters are actually dedicated to the stuff going on with Buu and Gohan, or dialogue between characters. So the majority of this well-known fight is all actually thanks to the animation staff, who added a bunch of pretty interesting material. Funny enough, part of the real manga fight was adapted, but in a very strange way, for a gummy commercial in their base forms. This fight is also the first time either of them is shown in Super Saiyan 2, and it marks 200 episodes since the two rivals first fought. Episode 231. Babidi tells Shin that, "I'm not going to be killed by the likes of you the way Papa was." Though he is said to be the son of Babidi, Toriyama clarified in the full-color manga release that Babidi is instead a doppelganger created by the original Babidi, who divided himself when he needed an extra hand. This would also split their magic. But once the original Babidi died, all the magic was left with Babidi. Toriyama had also explained that Buu was not created by the wizard, but existed since time immemorial. This has kind of been retconned by Daima, where it said that Babidi requested help from Marba to form Buu. But I guess that's still before the creation of the universe, so maybe it still counts? Episode 232. This episode marks the first appearance of Majin Buu. His name comes from Cinderella, as the ending of the magic spell, Babidi Babidi Buu. But this reference goes a long way, beyond just the 3 characters. As the song goes, Salagadula Mekikabura Bibidi Babidi Buu. Salaga is an avatar character from Dragon Ball Heroes. Kadula is a character from the Fusions manga. Mekikabura is one of the main antagonists from the Heroes franchise. And of course, Babidi and Babidi are the wizards. I also want to mention the fantastic headbutt section of the fight, which was done by Tadayoshi Yamamoto, one of the biggest and longest lasting names in the franchise, being the character designer for the Buu Saga alongside Katsuyoshi Nakatsuru. He worked as an animation director for the majority of the Dragon Ball Z films until Broly, also working in Dragon Ball Super and continuing to work in the Dragon Ball Heroes promotional anime. Episode 233. The final few minutes of this episode feature Goku and Vegeta halting their battle because of the sudden wave of Buu's ki. For some bizarre reason, the start of the next episode shows this scene all over again, but instead animated by Lasthouse and Masayumi Uchiyama. And visually, it's a pretty massive step down from the gorgeous animation of the previous episode. It's always interesting to see when they do this. Episode 234. In this episode, Trunks accidentally shatters the Piccolo Stone, not realizing that it was really Piccolo. The next episode, when they are freed from the stone, Trunks goes to check on Piccolo and finds his body in pieces. But Piccolo shows up and explains that he can regenerate with just his head, a similar explanation to what Cell originally gives. But I guess that bits and pieces of Piccolo's body are still out there in the desert somewhere, if he just regenerated from his head. Though we never see actually someone die on screen from being shattered from stone, this technically isn't 100% true. In the Dragon Ball Super manga, future Trunks uses the Sea Sword in battle against the Bora. So Trunks drops the Sea Sword and it shatters, killing the old Kai in the process. Poor guy, he just gets stuck there and dies. Episode 235. Majin Buu's Candy Beam, or I guess the Cookie Beam in this episode, was inspired by Akira Toriyama's third editor. One day, he brought over chocolates to Toriyama's house, and while Toriyama wasn't eating them, he caught his editor eating them himself. In fact, Majin Buu in general was inspired by Takeda, marking yet another villain inspired by his editor. Episode 236. The piercing blast Vegeta uses on Buu is one of my favorite attacks in the series. It's been given various names, including the Final Impact, Atomic Blast, Baryon Ray, and Atomic Flash. In Dragon Ball Heroes, the attack evolves into Double Atomic Flash, and Gogeta even gets the Atomic Kamehameha. Episode 237. The anime and the Kansenban release of Vegeta's Sacrifice unfortunately omit Vegeta's poem from the title page. Although short, I think it's really impactful, especially since Toriyama admits that he never likes to make things melancholic. The poem says, "My life fell like dew, disappears like dew. All this world is dream after dream." It's a reference to Toyotomi Hideyoshi's famous death poem, which is exactly the same, but the "this world" in Vegeta's is replaced with Naniwa, which is where Hideyoshi was from. Episode 238. It's revealed in episode 8 of Daima that Dr. Arinsu, Shin's sister and a scientist from the demon realm, is actually present at this time, and she quickly rushes in after Vegeta's sacrifice, swiping some of Buu's bits. She would go on to take these pieces and combine them with Cyberman seeds, with the help of the Dark Witch Marba, in order to create two new Majins, Du and Ku. She's actually tried making some before, but they were failures. Episode 239. Krillin and Piccolo take Goten and Trunks to the lookout in this episode, and they meet up with Dende. However, Dende is no longer wearing the Kami outfit from the beginning of the arc, and instead is just wearing clothes similar to the ones he wore as a kid, and he doesn't look quite as old anymore. This change is worsened as the arc continues, where Toriyama just straight up forgets about the redesign and the aged up Dende. So by the end of it, he's a kid once again. He is made a little bit taller in Super, but didn't look like a proper teenager again until Superhero. But the idea of him wearing the Kami outfit seems to have been completely ditched. Dragon Ball Z Kakarot even decided to remain faithful and shrink Dende too. Episode 240. The Dragon team have finally collected the Dragon Balls and summoned Shenron, wishing for all those killed that day to be brought to life, except for the bad ones. But Goku teleports in and stops them from making any more wishes. The curious thing about this wish is that it creates a plot hole, since once the team are taken to the lookout, Goku informs everyone that Gohan and Vegeta are both dead. But Goku was aware that the wish was made, and common sense would mean that, at the very least, Gohan would be brought back to life, since he's obviously not a bad guy. So everyone mourns Gohan, and no one tries to look for him, despite the fact that they just revived everyone. But it is worth noting that since Gohan is at the Kaioshin realm, the people who can sense energy probably couldn't feel him either. Episode 241. In the manga, it's never revealed who rats out Goten and Trunks to Babidi when he sends the telepathic message across the earth. But in the anime, the mother of Idasa and Tikosa is brought back up as the one who tells Babidi about the kids and where Trunks lives. There's also a weird cameo of Clint Eastwood's character from Dirty Harry. He is one of Toriyama's favorite people to parody, since he used him in one of his first manga, Mysterious Rain Jack, and as the model for Kurikinton Soramame in Dr. Slump. Episode 242. In this episode, Goten and Trunks prepare to begin their fusion training. But before that, the two of them as Super Saiyans take on Mr. Popo. Somehow, he's able to actually hold his own against them for a little bit, and doesn't just get one shot. Even 18 struggle against them more, so just how strong is he? Besides that though, Toriyama revealed something interesting regarding the fusion, stating, the series of movements leading up to the Ha are important for syncing two people up, and also concentrating their minds. But once you get really good at it, it's possible to merge with just the Ha. Episode 243. Gohan pulls out the legendary Sea Sword. Weirdly enough, in the original manga, the Sea Sword was one of the only times Z is used in a meaningful way. Of course, we know that the legend of the Sea Sword's power came from the fact that the Elder Kai was trapped within. Although we only see Gohan do it here, clearly inspired by the legend of Excalibur, he isn't the only one to pull it out. In the future timeline of the Dragon Ball Super manga, Trunks is the one to pull it out, and in Dragon Ball Z Shin Budokai 2, future Gohan is brought back from Otherworld, and he's the one to pull it out, eventually even getting Ultimate in this game's version of future Trunks' Buu arc. Episode 244. Goku has to get Buu's attention while Trunks gets the Dragon Radar. But did you know that the Dragon Radar Trunks is getting right now is not the one made by Bulma? The original Dragon Radar was stolen by General Blue. Goku then landed in Penguin Village, where Senbei, the titular Dr. Slump from Toriyama's past series, tries to fix it, but it's way too advanced. Instead, Turbo, his floating genius baby, takes apart a plane and uses it to remake the radar. So the one we've been using ever since, all throughout Z, is a replica made in a crossover. Episode 245. Super Saiyan 3 makes its first appearance. Goku is not only the one to discover this form, but also the one to name all the states. It's weird to think about, but the advanced stages wouldn't be known as Super Saiyan 2 and 3 unless Goku gave them those names right here. Toriyama had different ideas for the form, including just a new shape for the traditional Super Saiyan hair, which seems to have inspired Vegeta's design in Daima, and there was also a version with a tail. Episode 246. This is the first battle with Super Saiyan 3, becoming one of the most divisive and popular forms in the franchise, a form given to a lot of characters in extended media. Goku, Gotenks, Vegeta, and Majin Buu of all people are the only ones we see obtain it in the anime, although games and other things give nearly every Saiyan Super Saiyan 3. We've seen Gogeta, Vegito, Broly, Bardock, both present and future Gohan and Trunks, Gohanks, Raditz, Nappa, Cumber, Shallot, Beat, Note, note, the Xeno avatars, even Roshi, Krillin, Puar, Yamcha, and Kid Goku in Dragon Ball SD. Episode 247. Buu uses a magazine as inspiration for his new face, taking on the look of Barry Kahn, a movie star who later appears in Dragon Ball Super as an actor playing the Great Saiyaman, who ends up being possessed by an alien and Gohan has to take him down. Episode 248. Goku continues teaching the kids fusion, but has to leave this episode. Akira Toriyama actually came up with a fusion dance while watching TV. He already planned on having dumb poses as part of an important technique, and came up with a shon part of fusion while watching a performance on TV, since it was the performer's signature pose. Episode 249. In this episode, Majin Buu performs a miracle by allowing a blind boy to see. In the English dub, he's named Tommy. But his story doesn't end here. In the video game Dragon Ball Online, which had oversight from Toriyama, the boy goes on to become rich, and even names himself after the monster who saved him, going by Mr. B. He becomes a champion for the future Majin race, which begins to pop up after the series ends, opening up Buu World, a theme park that employs mostly Majins. Also, we see Krillin and Piccolo showing the kids the fusion dance. Even though they don't fuse here, Toriyama did draw the result, Krillin, as an example for a fan fusion contest. I have a video all about the contest here if you want to learn more. Episode 250. Technically, this is the first episode where Beerus is mentioned. When the old Kai is freed from the sword, he mentions being trapped in there for millions of years by someone who wasn't as strong as Buu. Toriyama explained in Psycho Jump that every 1,000 years, the Kais and Gods of Destruction hold a meeting, and in one of these meetings, Beerus and the Supreme Kai got into an argument, and Beerus sealed him away in a sword. So this has a few implications. One is that Beerus not only has swords, but he can lock people within them, and two, Buu was potentially stronger than Beerus at one point. Episode 251. In the manga version of the scene where Goten and Trunks try and fail the fusion over and over again, there's a really funny joke where Krillin demolishes the fourth wall, calling out Toriyama for copying the same page, so he wouldn't have to redraw it. Toriyama then pops up and says that he doesn't have to get paid for this page. This, of course, doesn't actually happen in the anime, sadly. Episode 252. Mr. Satan and Majin Buu start to slowly become friends. At this point in time, Akira Toriyama had actually been trying to end Dragon Ball for a while, but to encourage him to continue, his Buu Saga editor gave him a lot more freedom than normal. He just wanted Toriyama to have fun with the final arc, leading into stuff like Mr. Satan having a much bigger role, befriending Buu, and helping save the world. Episode 253. Toriyama has mentioned that this part of the series, specifically the area around Babidi's ship, and seemingly the area where Buu sets up his home, were based on Africa, as Toriyama was enthralled by pictures in an Africa landscape book. This is pretty obvious when you visit the Majin areas in Dragon Ball Online. Speaking of, Mr. Satan and Buu adopt a puppy. The dog's name is B, and he sticks around with Mr. Satan from here on out, appearing in the end of Z, Super, and GT. In Dragon Ball Online, B is remembered and immortalized as statues in the starting home of the Majin race, B Village. Episode 254. In this episode, Majin Buu splits himself in two, between good and evil. But this is actually not the only time he does something like this. Well, kinda. In expanded material, way into the future, Majin Buu finds Mr. Satan's dirty books, reading Bob and Margaret's Forbidden Games, the same book Roshi used to teach Krillin and Goku how to read. Afterwards, Buu realizes that he wanted a partner just like humans have, splitting part of himself off to mold a wife for himself. Together, they would take little pieces and shower them with a love beam, creating an entirely new race of Majins, which begin to populate the world. A version of this scene is shown in Xenoverse, and it's the origin of the Majin race in Dragon Ball Online. Episode 255. Super Buu is born after pure evil Buu absorbs Fat Buu. There's always debate about Super Buu's power in comparison to the other Majins, but the Daizenshuu explains that Buu's power greatly increases after absorbing Fat Buu, while Dragon Ball Forever explains that the Majin got weaker once Fat Buu was ripped away from inside of him. Even Takao Koyama, the anime's producer and writer, has claimed that Super Buu, Gohan absorbed, is the mightiest Majin of them all. He also has a bunch of what-if absorptions, such as Frieza, Cell, and Vegeta, even Tien and Yamcha, which actually ends up making him weaker according to V-Jump. Episode 256. In this episode, Super Buu becomes the one villain to kill the most Earthlings in Dragon Ball Z, and is only later outdone in Super, and Res F I guess, by Frieza. Zeno does end up killing everyone in Future Trunks' reality, but even Black left more humans alive than Super Buu, as they managed to survive underground. The only ones he meant to spare were the people on the lookout, Mr. Satan and B. The unintended survivors were Tien, Chaozu, Yajirobe, and Korin, although everyone is killed later on, except for Mr. Satan, B, and Dende. It's worth noting that Goku and Vegeta are both dead at this point, and Gohan is at the Supreme Kais. Episode 257. The time chamber works weird and different from before in this episode. When we're first introduced to it, it's clearly shown as a different dimension where Goku couldn't sense anything outside of it. But now, Piccolo can talk telepathically to Goten and Trunks. Them talking should also be at different speeds because of the difference in time flow. Goten and Trunks talking to Piccolo should be really fast, while Piccolo talking to the kids should be very slow. We also see Goten, Trunks, Piccolo, and Super Buu enter the time chamber at once, though a lot of this can be explained away, such as the original rule being in place because there was only enough food for 2 people to last a year, and the fact that in Super it's explained that Dende can tweak how the time chamber works and even upgrading it to remove restrictions. Episode 258. There's a strange choice in this episode. Up to this point, Super Buu had been depicted with white eyes, but when Gotenks lands a punch across Super Buu's face, his eyes change to red with no explanation or acknowledgement, and they stay red for the rest of the series. The Kai version of this episode actually adds a transition from white to red eyes, implying that they change out of fury. Episode 259. Akira Toriyama has mentioned a few times that Gotenks vs Super Buu is one of his favorite battles, behind King Piccolo vs Goku, although he has also mentioned Tien vs Goku as his favorite. Additionally, he said that 2 of Gotenks' moves are in his top 3, the Super Buu Buu volleyball attack and the Kamikaze Ghost attack. The number 1 spot, of course, is the Kamehameha. Episode 260. Super Buu escapes the time chamber and kills everyone outside, though this shouldn't be possible, since the time within the chamber is so fast that Gotenks should have technically been able to escape well before Buu had any chance to do anything. Likewise, through the fight in the time chamber, the Z fighters outside are seen discussing what's going on, which, again, shouldn't be possible, since the fight should have only lasted seconds in the outside world. Though this could be another case of Dende having changed the time chamber for whatever reason. Master Roshi also dies in this episode, a very sad coincidence since it's also the last episode with his original voice actor, Kohei Miyauchi, who passed away a few months before the episode aired, with his final line being yelling out Krillin's name before Buu gets to him. Hiroshi Masuoka would take over the role of Roshi until Kai, where Masaharu Sato continues to play the part to this day. Episode 261. The Super Buu Buu volleyball attack used in this episode is a move where Gotenks traps his enemy within the Galactic Donuts and uses him as a volleyball. In Dragon Ball FighterZ, Gotenks does this move by himself, but if you have Piccolo in the same team as you, he joins in just like in this episode. Weirdly enough, this is one of 2 volleyball-based moves Gotenks uses. The other is Tien's volleyball fist, which he uses in the special Yo Son Goku and His Friends Return. Gotenks seems to have a fascination with the older fighters' moves, since he also uses the Wolfang Fist in that special. Episode 262. In the original Japanese, Gohan tells Kibito that he wants to wear his father's gi into battle. Kibito says that it's the same color as the poop of the frogs on planet Popol, to which Gohan responds by saying that it's the color of the Yamabuki Keria rosebush. As you can see here, this is in fact not the color of Goku's gi. Well, in the anime. In the manga, Toriyama specifies a few times that Goku's gi is in fact this golden yellow. Although Toriyama would sometimes follow the anime's color, we do see this more yellow version in many of his illustrations, and even Dragon Ball FighterZ eventually added a color palette closer to this. I personally prefer this. Gohan also only really wears Goku's gi while his father is dead. We see this in BoJack Unbound, The Future Timeline, and now here. The Super anime does break this by having him wear orange in the Tournament of Power, though in the manga he wears purple. Episode 263. Ultimate Gohan and Super Buu begin their battle. In universe, this form actually didn't have a name until fairly recently, in Dragon Ball Super manga chapter 102, where Goten calls Gohan's form Ultimate, since it never had a name beforehand. Gohan isn't a fan of the name, while the kids love it. Funny enough, Goten himself gets Ultimate in Dragon Ball Heroes. Episode 264. In the last bit of this episode, Buu gets ready to absorb the kids and Piccolo. The chapter that this is adapting has a Toriyama comment that mentions a certain international star says he wants to make a live-action Dragon Ball. It's not set in stone yet, but it might become a reality. He doesn't say who it is, but Toriyama has mentioned that he would have wanted Jackie Chan to play Goku. Toriyama and Jackie Chan did meet at one point, since the actor was a fan of Dr. Slump, and even included a Rayleigh in one of his films. Episode 265. There are a couple of references to important past scenes in Dragon Ball. When Gohan and Buu get ready to fight, they take on the iconic poses of Goku and Vegeta's first battle, and later they kick each other in the face just like in the finale of the first tournament. These are really cool, but the fight is actually pretty different in the manga, where Gohan is overwhelmed from the start thanks to Buu absorbing Gotenks and Piccolo. In the same week this episode aired, the Dragon Ball manga had its final chapter released in Shonen Jump. Episode 266. During the fight, Super Buu tortures Gohan by using the knowledge Piccolo has within him. Things like saying that Piccolo taught him better than this, and that his special beam cannon is stronger. The dub adds one extra thing, which I think is pretty cool, where Gohan tries to hide away from Buu only for the Majin to intercept him and say, a direct quote Piccolo said to Gohan during the Nappa encounter. Also, both Goku and Vegeta return in this episode. Goku is revived by the old Kai giving him his life, while Vegeta was granted 1 day on Earth by King Yama. He should have gotten his body taken away and soul recycled, but Yama kept him around just in case things got worse with Buu. Episode 267. The original idea for the Potara earrings arose from necessity. Fusion Reborn was already in production, so Toriyama didn't want to use the fusion dance to combine Goku and Vegeta. So he decided to use the earrings he'd already been drawing as a new mystical item. The chapter before Vegito's first appearance even calls him Gogeta, so maybe Toriyama, or the editorial, didn't realize that the fusion name was already taken. So when he showed up properly, Vegito was born. But if you want to learn more, I have a video specifically about this. Episode 268. The anime adds a scene where Dende heals Tien, but for some reason, Tien just kinda disappears after that, and we never see him again until the Spirit Bomb. In the manga, he just stays knocked out. There are also 2 imaginary fusions Goku thinks of, the anime original Denku and Gotan, or Gokul in English. He's been in quite a few Dragon Ball games, including Heroes and Dokkan Battle. In Budokai 2, he also has an alternate design where he looks more like Mr. Satan. Episode 269. In this entire episode, Vegito fights Super Buu in base form, whereas in the manga, Vegito transforms immediately into Super Saiyan. The Potara fusion of Goku and Vegeta is known as Vegito in Japanese, usually with an E and a second T instead of an I. This is a name formed by blending Vegeta and Kakaroto, the Japanese form of Kakarot. But since we dropped the to part in English, the Viz manga release chose to translate the fusion name as Vegirot. Episode 270. This episode has one of my favorite moves in the series, the Spirit Sword. Video games like Dragon Ball Heroes have evolved that move into the Spirit Excalibur. The anime also gives us an exclusive look at what Krillin and Yamcha were doing in Otherworld, as they train at the Grand Kaio's world. This is the only time where Krillin meets King Kai, and is the only Z-Fighter not to train under him in the manga canon. The next time King Kai would be with any of the Z-Fighters besides Goku is in the 2009 Shonen Jump special, Yo Son Goku and His Friends Return, where he visits Earth. Episode 271. In these episodes, Dabura has been in heaven with the girls. Although these scenes are anime only, him being sent to heaven is mentioned in the manga. While visiting King Yama in Otherworld, Goku learns that Dabura was recently judged, reasoning that a demon like Dabura would actually enjoy hell. He regrets his past actions and even helps Bulma, Chi-Chi, and Videl search for Gohan. There's even a Dokkan Battle card depicting this version of Dabura teaming up with Pikkon in Otherworld. Episode 272. This is the final episode with Vegito before he defuses. Vegeta's original Japanese voice actor, Ryo Horikawa, has explained that playing Vegito was one of the hardest things he had to do while recording Dragon Ball Z. Him and Masako Nozawa recorded the entire thing together at once, and only planned out where to breathe ahead of time. He credits his and Nozawa's long history of teamwork in the series as the success of Vegito. Episode 273. I guess Vegito getting absorbed really annoyed people, since this was the lowest viewed episode of Dragon Ball Z in Japan. Vegito defusing here has been explained in a few different ways, including the gases within Buu undoing the fusion, which is explained in Dragon Ball Daima. Then there's also the Potara earrings having a time limit for the non-Kaioshin in Super. This episode is the first to use music from movie 12, Fusion Reborn, meaning we just barely missed getting to use music from his counterpart. Episode 274. Goku and Vegeta continue their adventures within Buu, where they face evil copies of their friends. The Chosenshu mentions that these copies are just as strong as the originals, while also mentioning that within Buu, Goku and Vegeta have 1/100th of their normal power, while Buu himself is immortal within his own body. Episode 275. Goku and Vegeta combine their attacks on one another to fire a combination of the Kamehameha and the Final Flash, an attack that would later be given to Vegito in games and in Super as the final Kamehameha. Vegito never uses this attack in the show itself. It was instead made up for the video game Dragon Ball Z Ultimate Battle 22, where it's originally given to Gogeta, but Vegeta would get it soon after, becoming his signature attack, and one of the few moves from games to be adapted into the anime. Episode 276. Kid Buu is born. He was the original version of the Majin who terrorized the Demon Realm and killed the Supreme Kais of Universe 7. Though Toriyama has explained that Buu has been around since time immemorial, Daima explains that Marba and Babidi created Buu in the Demon Realm. Toriyama has also said that Babidi didn't really create Buu, he only knew the spell to bring him forth. When asked what the spell was, he said, "Sorry if I summoned Majin Buu in your house." Episode 277. In Super, we find out that Universe 7 is a little weird compared to the others. We had 5 Kaioshin active at once, 1 for each cardinal direction, and 1 Grand Kaioshin. Every other universe we've visited since only has 1 Kaioshin, who is soul-linked to the God of Destruction. Episode 278. In this episode, Kibito Shin agrees to take Dende to Namek in order to use the Dragon Balls, but the old Kai tries to stop them, saying that they mess with the natural order of things. This is expanded upon in Dragon Ball GT, where the Dragon Balls become polluted by negative energy and give birth to the Shadow Dragons, to which the old Kai says, "I told you so." The old Kai also mentions that he told the Namekians long ago that they weren't allowed to use the Dragon Balls to affect other planets. He could have possibly already been aware of the Dragon Balls and their abilities beforehand, thanks to the Demon Realm Dragon Balls introduced in Daima, said to be the original set. Episode 279. In my opinion, one of the best episodes in the entire series, and maybe my favorite fight, Super Saiyan 2 Goku vs Kid Buu, was animated by Studio Cockpit, with animation supervisor Keisuke Matsunaga at the helm. It's an incredible fight, and almost entirely filler since Goku only fights Kid Buu in Super Saiyan 3 in the manga. The Kai version of this battle tries to elevate it by adding a new insert song, Let It Burn. Since the Buu Saga sadly lacked insert songs, it was pretty cool to see here. Episode 280. This is a very Vegeta-focused episode, as he acknowledges Goku as number 1. There has always been a rumor that Toriyama hated Vegeta, but this isn't really true. Toriyama originally envisioned Vegeta as any regular old bad guy, who would just die at the end of the arc. But he became more and more popular. In 1995, after the manga concluded, Toriyama explained, with Vegeta, well, I don't like him all that much, but he was extremely helpful to have around. However, as time went on, it seems like Vegeta grew on him. He ranks Vegeta alongside Piccolo as some of his favorite characters, saying, "A pair who never say anything unless they have to, and have an air of aloof superiority. Their coolness is the real deal." And in 2014, he mentions that he wanted to have Vegeta be the star of the next movie. Sadly, this didn't come to be, but it's clear that over the years, he really did warm up to Vegeta. As he said in 2013, he has a well-defined character, as a resentful presence with both strong pride and a desire to get even stronger. So I could draw him without difficulty. The character would sort of move on its own. It was fun to draw people like Piccolo, Vegeta, and Mr. Satan. Episode 281. Vegeta steps out to fight Kid Buu as Goku gathers energy. I really love this whole final fight. It's my favorite section in the entire series. Despite Goku letting Vegeta buy him time, Toriyama has explained that all he wanted was to selflessly fight alone against Buu. Toriyama explained in the full color release of the final volume, "There's just one enemy. Despite there being so many people over on his side, it's a bit cowardly, isn't it?" You can tell from his final line from the battle with Majin Buu that Goku's true desire is to fight one-on-one. Episode 282. Kid Buu has to force himself to spit out Fat Buu so he can finally attack Mr. Satan. Although we've never seen Fat Buu be the one to absorb people and take their traits, in the official comedic remake, Dragon Ball SD, there's a bonus chapter where Fat Buu isn't absorbed by Evil Buu, and instead, he just goes to the lookout and attacks. There, he absorbs all of the Z fighters, and we see many different versions of this Buu, including Krillin, Yamcha, 18, Roshi, and even Puar. This Majin Buu Puar absorbed ends up running into Neko Majin, pointing out how they look alike. Also, in the manga, B is taken by the Kais, while in the anime, he stays with Mr. Satan. Episode 283. In this episode, Vegeta tells Dende to wish for every good person who died the day of the tournament to be revived. But the old Kai is also revived. This implies that it affected people outside of Earth. So like, did everyone who died for any reason in Universe 7 get revived too? This has even weirder implications in the anime, where Kid Buu went around blowing up other planets before getting to the world of the Kais. So, did the people in those planets get revived in the middle of space and die? In the manga, Kid Buu teleports to the world of the Kais immediately after destroying Earth. It's also a bit weird since evil people are still around after the wish, so maybe they just weren't considered as evil as Babidi and Dabura, since that's quite a high bar. Episode 284. This is the first episode with a spirit bomb since episode 94, where Goku finally hit Frieza with a spirit bomb, meaning there have been 190 episodes since its last appearance. Episode 285. There is a ton of cameos in this episode. Characters from past adventures who give energy to Goku are Upa, Bora, Korin, Yajirobe, Android 17, Tien, Chaozu, Snow, Android number 8, Lunch, Nam, Giran, Mummy Man, Devil Man, Sharpener, Erasa, King Fury, along with the rest of humanity and the Z Fighters. This is also Launch's first cameo since the Frieza arc, and though it is anime only, she was supposed to appear in the manga, as originally, Toriyama had planned to have her in place of 17, but changed his mind. Episode 286. The final Genkidama push and thumbs up scene was fairly short in the original manga, and kinda cramped to keep along with the 14-ish pages Toriyama had been doing, but thankfully for the Kanzenban release of the manga, Toriyama expanded on the ending a little bit by splitting the final thumbs up page into a few different ones. One for the more epic defeat of Buu, then one for the quiet aftermath as Goku powers down, and the last one for the thumbs up in celebration, where Vegeta says, "What's up with that look? I really can't stand you," with a smile. The anime has its own expansions on the ending, with plenty of flashbacks and Vegeta shooting a thumbs up back to Goku. Episode 287. In this episode, peace returns to the universe, but the anime has a bit of filler before the end of the story. After wishing for everyone to forget about Majin Buu's atrocities, Buu walks around the city and beats up a street fighter in a single hit. A direct callback to Kid Goku having a very similar encounter with a street fighter when he first visited West City. This is also the first episode with Great Saiyaman 2, Videl's superhero alter ego. It was first introduced in Wrath of the Dragon 5 months prior. Goten and Trunks also fuse while naked in this episode, and Gotenks doesn't get the Metamorian outfit, implying that the vest is made up of the clothes of the fusees, and not just generated by magic. Law of equivalent exchange, I guess. Episode 288. The outfit Goten wears in this episode is a spin on an outfit Goku wore briefly after defeating the Red Ribbon Army. This filler episode is the last one before the events of Daima and Super take place, since the next 3 episodes jump ahead in time 10 years. As the series was coming to an end, this episode serves as a bookend of sorts, with Goku being away in nature and taking care of animals. There's even a flashback to Goku and Grandpa Gohan's time together. Episode 289. This episode has a bunch of Easter eggs. When Trunks goes to Gohan's place, there's a VHS tape next to the TV, named Bird's Eye, a reference to Toriyama's Bird Studio. The TV show showing the weather, misspelled without an A, is playing an instrumental version of the vocal theme from Wrath of the Dragon. Gohan's books include a book named Areli, the main character of Dr. Slump, and a book named Jump, a reference to Shonen Jump. He also brings down 3 books by real-life scientist Charles Darwin, known for his theory of evolution. Gohan's wedding photo is also notably different from the one in Super, and so is his house, though they could have just moved after Superhero. Gohan also has art in his house of Namek and the Kaioshin realm, both places where he got his potential unleashed. At the tournament, we can also spot someone that looks like Dr. Mashirito, Toribot, and even Tiger Mask. Episode 290. Every episode introducing the legacy of Goku in Z has had I am as part of the title, such as I am Gohan, I am Pan, and now I am Oob. Sadly, Goten is the odd one out. There are also more callbacks to the original Dragon Ball here, such as Oob entering the tournament to win money for his village, just like Nam, and Goku asking Buu to rearrange the numbers, just like Tien and Chaozu. The chapter this episode is adapting ended with a little blurb from Toriyama announcing that something special was going to happen next chapter, but not to get your hopes up. This is kind of insane, since the next chapter, the series would just end. Not many people knew this was happening, even behind the scenes. Dragon Ball was an industry all on its own, where hundreds of people were employed, so it was a big deal to end it. Of course, GT was already in production at this point, and unlike the manga, where the story does end, the original airing of this episode and the next actually have a preview for Dragon Ball GT, so people already knew something else was coming. Episode 291. This episode marks the end of many things. Of course, this was the end of not just Dragon Ball Z, but also Toriyama's original 42-volume epic. This was also the last time Shunsuke Kikuchi's music would be used in the series. He'd been composing from episode 1 of the original series, and even before then with Dr. Slump. Akihito Tokunaga would take over in Dragon Ball GT. The Kai version of this episode plays Flow's Chala He Chala as an insert song, which I find a little weird since Chala He Chala was never used in Kai, but it does work. The Kanzenban release of this chapter also expanded the ending in a beautiful way. When Goku leaves with Oob, instead of just flying away, Goku stops to give Oob something, calling forth the Flying Nimbus, and flops him on top of it, saying that he knew he'd be able to ride it. Oob starts flying out of there at full speed back home, and as they fly, Goku can see his younger self flying alongside Oob, remembering that feeling of first stepping out into a larger world. Goku passes Oob, and they continue forth. The manga ends with a group shot of the Dragon Team, and Vegeta promising himself that sooner or later, he will defeat Goku. By changing the story in this way, Dragon Ball ends with Goku becoming Master Roshi, in a way, giving a young boy the Flying Nimbus, and taking him on as his new martial arts student. He's come full circle, though I wonder who got the power pole. Was it Oob, or maybe Pan got it? And with that, we've covered every single episode of Dragon Ball Z, with one fact or more for each one. Honestly, I did get a little emotional watching the end of the series. It's a story that means a lot to me, and really shows us that our only limits are ourselves. I will be doing Dragon Ball, Super, and GT eventually. It's been a ton of fun to rewatch the series, so I hope you learned something new. And so, I give you the last message Akira Toriyama gave to us as readers. Tackle life with as much energy as Goku. I'll try to do the same. Thanks for watching, be sure to final spirit bomb that subscribe button, and if you're looking for more deep dives into Dragon Ball, check out my video explaining the entire history of the Frieza Force.